Welcome to the NBAV podcast.
Welcome back to NBAV and the NBA Avenue podcast. Last night, February 26th, 4 games of basketball, and it was a night of missed opportunities. For some teams, they fully missed the opportunity, and for one team in particular, the New York Knicks, it was nearly a missed opportunity. You had the first game of the night, the Pacers at home, welcoming in the Toronto Raptors into their building, where you would think that the Indiana Pacers would certainly handle business on their home court. There's playoff seeding at stake. The Pacers have the ability to rise up to the 5th spot, potentially maybe go up to the 4th spot. Who knows? But they had the opportunity. They just came off a victory beating the Dallas Mavericks, who had defeated their previous 7 opponents. The Mavericks were riding a 7-game win streak, the hottest team in the NBA, undefeated since the trade deadline. The Pacers disposed of them, Luka, Kyrie, and then they lose to the Toronto Raptors on their home floor in a game that it's very hard to understand. How can the Pacers lose on their home court? Missed opportunity to a Raptors team that has nothing doing on the season. You had the Knicks welcoming in the worst team in the league, the Detroit Pistons, into their building, Madison Square Garden. Yes, the Knicks have injuries, but the Pistons have the worst team in the league. They're almost a guaranteed victory when you play them. So what happened for the Knicks? The Knicks seems like they're about to lose the game. They are taking some very unwelcome three-pointers at the end of the game. They had Bogdanovich shooting a quick contested three-pointer on the left wing. You had Jalen Brunson walking it up and taking a whole bunch of just settling shots. And when I say settling, I mean that Jalen Brunson was settling for walking up to the three-point line and just shooting immediately versus trying to pass around the ball, get a good shot, get an open shot. Instead, he was settling. He didn't try to work for the bucket. He just figured he can run up there and hit the shot. And that's not really a recipe for winning basketball right there. Now, I understand they probably thought that they had the game. It was against Detroit, but they really put themselves in a position where, frankly, they could have, and perhaps in some ways should have, lost the game last night. When you hoist up a bad three-point shot, you're taking away the chance that you'll score a layup or a dunk on the possession. Or maybe you'll even get a better look from 3. The point is, you're playing a team. The Knicks are playing against a team like Detroit. Detroit doesn't play basketball the right way, and they've shown that all season long. So when you're going up against a team that you know is not going to play basketball the right way, they're not going to play the team sport. They're going to be each man for himself. They don't have good play calls. They don't have good passing and good ball movement. All the more reason for you to go in there and play like the team that you usually are. And the Knicks are usually a very good team basketball playing franchise. The Knicks have shown that on the entire season. So how did they enter into this game and go away from that? Why are they hoisting up shots that they don't really need to take? Why is Bogdanovich taking tougher shots than he needs to? Why is Brunson not attacking? Why is he not moving the ball? And again, I understand if it comes down to the end of the shot clock and you've tried 3 or 4 options and it didn't work, now it's the end of the shot clock and you need to hoist up a shot. So, okay, get the ball to Brunson, get the ball to Bogdanovich, let them hoist it up at the end of the shot clock and take the best chance you have. But to do that as a first option, that's not the Knicks, that's not winning basketball. And the three-point shot can be a massive weapon, especially if you are the worst team entering the night and you feel like, hey, we can use the three-point shot. If it's going in, that can be our way of closing the gap where we are the less talented team. But if we make more threes on the night, that gives us a shot to win the game. And the three-point shot is a great equalizer in many ways. But the Knicks didn't need that. They are the stronger team. And if they just try to pass the ball and set up good shots, they are going to get mostly wide open dunks and layups against this Pistons team. And that was the case when the Knicks were trying to do that. But the Knicks, unfortunately, didn't do that the entire game, and it was costing them dearly, especially in the fourth quarter. You came down to at the end of the game right there, and DiVincenzo throws the ball away. Right? You have Josh Hart going to the free throw line. He's missing. You have DiVincenzo. The ball gets tapped out. DiVincenzo takes it, and he tries to throw it to the right wing, throws the ball away. By the grace of God, the Knicks And DiVincenzo manages, he runs at the ball, he gets both hands on the ball. There are a lot of people complaining about a foul there. There should have been a foul. We'll get to that soon. DiVincenzo gets his hands on the ball. The Knicks manage to come up with it. They throw the ball, rocket pass into Josh Hart on the inside, and Josh Hart gets the N1 call, which puts the Knicks up for good. The Knicks had Ochoa in the game. The Knicks had Hartenstein in the game. And the Pistons could not grab a rebound on consecutive foul shot misses. There was one foul shot miss. Knicks got the rebound. Then Josh Hart went back to the line, missed another foul shot, and the Knicks again got the rebound, and that was what ultimately ended the game. So the Knicks were doing well in some parts of it where it was smart by Thibodeau to have the two big men in the game at the same time. It made it that the Pistons couldn't get a single rebound, which is very problematic. You still, no matter who's in the game, you should be able to box out on the foul line. It's the fundamentals of basketball. But the Pistons did not do that, and the Knicks were able to come away with the victory, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. But the Knicks were very, very, very lucky to win the ball game, considering that they threw the ball away and didn't take the smartest shots down the stretch. Now, the Knicks know that they didn't play their best basketball last night. They are not kidding themselves into thinking that this was a championship performance against the lowly Pistons. But that is how it goes. You win, and you get the victory, no matter how. And then if you get suddenly one more victory, two more victories, you've won 3 games in a row. And then it can continue to snowball from there, right? When you start to win games, there tends to be a buy-in that happens, right? So the Knicks, they have the opportunity now. You get a victory, and if you can string a couple more together, nobody's going to remember how exactly you won the game, whether you should have maybe been a foul call at the end of it. Nobody's going to really be thinking of that because it will get lost in the midst of a win streak. So that's really how it goes. Win and they buy in, lose, and players start to snooze. They start to tune out, and that's just how it goes in the league. You get a victory. Sometimes you may not deserve it in certain ways, but in the end of the day, there are going to be other games where you probably deserve to win and you didn't, which was the case when the Knicks played the Rockets and they had that terrible foul call where there should have been no foul call on a last-second Hail Mary heave, and the game should have gone into overtime. And tonight, the Knicks, frankly, just about threw away the game, and they were very lucky to come up with the ball at the end of that regulation right there and get it to Hart inside, and then the rebounding sealed the deal. And then, of course, to cap the night, you had, the Nets beat the Grizzlies, which nobody really cares about, but the Heat, a very, very short-handed version of the Heat, without Jimmy Butler, who's serving a suspension, without Terry Rozier, they walk into Sacramento. Sacramento coming off a victory against the Clippers the previous night, and they, on their home court, cannot beat a severely short-handed Heat team. Now, for those of us who listened to the show yesterday, if you listened, you know that we said that the Heat would win this game. And what was the rationale? Well, it was a good matchup. It's a close matchup. But despite the fact that the Heat were missing several other players, this is kind of who the Heat are. They win games that you don't believe they should win, and they lose games that you don't believe they would be expected to lose. And that's the Miami Heat. If you had to sum up the season, it's very difficult to predict. But we actually picked the Heat last night in that game. We said it would be close, and it was close. It really was close. The Kings did a good job coming back, but it was a second quarter where Kevin Love beat them up pretty bad. At one point, he scored 9 points straight. It was a case where Bam Adebayo was scoring clutch buckets late. It was a game where, on the Kings side, you had Keegan Murray playing very well. You had De'Aaron Fox, of course. You had Kevin Huerter chipping in here and there. And then you had the stat machine, the guy who puts up the statistics in every game, Domantas Sabonis. But yet, if you watch the highlights, it's very hard to see where he was making impactful plays. If you watch when the Kings are doing their best work, it's not really where Sabonis is involved. Sabonis, not a great defender, so that's one knock against him. But for the most part, the Kings are at their best when they're moving quickly up and down the court. The Kings are not at their best when they pass the ball inside to Sabonis, and he holds on to it and thinks about what to do, and the offense stalls, and then he ends up trying to pass it out or hand it off or do something like that. So where the Kings play their best basketball, it's quick moving, it's Malik Monk, it's De'Aaron Fox, it's Keegan Murray hitting the three, it's Kevin Huerter hitting the three, it's driving to the basket. Fox with the two-man game, Fox driving in and getting his float game. That's really the Kings at their best. None of those versions of the Kings are really the Domantas Sabonis version. So I understand, yes, he is the triple-double personified, where what does the triple-double mean? It means that you are getting statistics in several areas of the game, right? It means that you are rebounding the ball. It means that you are getting at least 10 points, right? So these are the type of things that Domantas Sabonis does do, but the question is, how impactful is it? More important to get a triple-double, or is it more important to win the ball game? Of course, it's more important to win the ball game. And certainly Sabonis is getting assists, right? He got 10 assists in the ball game. That was the third statistic, the third element of the triple-double. But a lot of his assists are not incredible passes. They aren't passes that we saw from the older Sabonis. They aren't passes that we see from Nikola Jokic. They're more so he gets stuck, he sends the ball out, Keegan Murray hits a three. Those type of assists are the ones that Domantas Sabonis gets. They're not incredible playmaking, is what I'm trying to say. So Sabonis is a guy who continually fills up the stat sheet and does not lead to the kind of impact you would hope. I mean, look at the record for the Sacramento Kings. They're currently sitting in the 7th seed. They're 33-24. Sure, that's a fine record. You're winning more than 50% of your games, but you're not winning 60%. So you would think that for a team that has De'Aaron Fox, for a team that has some pretty good depth with Harrison Barnes and Malik Monk and Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter and other guys coming off the bench, you would certainly think that if you have De'Aaron Fox and then you have Domantas Sabonis, that if Sabonis is exactly who everybody thinks he is, that should add up to far more consistency. And they've been a very inconsistent team this season. Extremely, extremely inconsistent, right? They're only 16-10 on their home court, 17-14 away. So they're slightly above 500 in both of those categories. You would just expect a little bit more from them. You'd expect more as the season comes down the home stretch than them being 50% in their last 10 games, right? They're only 5-5 in their last 10 ball games when they clearly can see the standings and they know how important and impactful each one of these games are, right? They are currently still in a 7 seed. They're tied, actually, for a 7 and an 8 seed with Dallas. And they're now behind the Pelicans and the Suns, 5 and 6 seeds, who are in a tie that the Kings were previously involved in. Now the Kings are firmly in the 7 and 8 range. So the Kings know that they have to win these ball games. They get a good victory the night before, but their inconsistency makes it very tough to try and get good seeding for the playoffs. And if the playoffs were today, they would be in a play-in game, playing for their lives and for their season. So definitely some disappointment there for the Sacramento Kings, whereas for the Miami Heat, they had much smoother in-and-out basketball action, where the Kings will sometimes get the ball inside and things will stall. The Heat had better in-and-out passing, where they pass the ball inside, they immediately pass the ball out to a wing for a three. They get the ball outside, they pass it inside, they find the cutter, they find the back cut, they find Jaime Jaquez cutting, they find Adebayo for a good look. They find Duncan Robinson curling around. They find Caleb Martin, who then steps off to the side and runs inside for an open dunk. That was the kind of quicker passing, smoother offense that the Miami Heat had, despite the fact that they were a team who have much less experience than the Kings, especially with the lineup that they rolled out there last night. If you look at last night's Miami Heat lineup, they didn't even play the guy who was playing in the last several games, Nikola Jovic. He didn't even play. It was Caleb Martin. It was Jaime Jaquez with 26. Bam Adebayo with 28. Duncan Robinson had 11 assists, actually. So he wasn't getting it done in the scoring. He only had 4 points, 4 rebounds, but he had 11 assists in the ball game. They had DeLon Wright with 13. Haywood Highsmith with 15. Kevin Love, very surprisingly, with 19. And that was really it. It was 3, 4, 5, 6. It was a 7-man lineup. And then they had Cole Swider and Alondas Williams playing 5 minutes and 3 minutes in that order. So you had basically a 7-man rotation beat the Sacramento Kings, who are walking out there with a much better team on the night and still squandering the ball game and squandering their place in the standings, and now moving down to a tie for the 7 and 8 seed. So a massive missed opportunity on a night full of missed opportunities in the NBA. There were a couple of other points that I wanted to talk about. There was the missed call, right? You have the missed call, supposedly. Let's roll with that for a minute, in the Knicks versus Pistons game, where some people are showing a replay, and on Twitter it seems like they're saying, oh, this was a clear foul at the end of the game. Let's get this straight. If you are watching the end of the Knicks vs. Pistons, and you think that the play where DiVincenzo almost threw the ball away and then pursued the ball, got his hands on the ball, got it back, and the Knicks went on to win, if you think that that was a clear foul, then you just don't know what game you're watching. I'm sorry, but if you would like to compare the foul that was called at the end of the Knicks game against the Rockets, where there was a desperation heave, a Hail Mary at the buzzer, where there was no foul, and you want to say that that equates to the Knicks, who you're saying they should have been called for a foul here? This was a bang-bang 50-50 ball, where DiVincenzo goes and he gets two hands on the ball, and the two collide with each other. And it's very unclear to say whose fault is it. Yes, DiVincenzo is running to make a play on the ball. That is basketball personified. Whereas in the other game, you have someone taking a heave at the buzzer, which is just expected that the game is going into overtime, especially where nobody is fouled, and the referees just decide, hey, it looked like it was close to a foul, so let's just blow the whistle and take away the overtime game where we can the overtime portion of the game where we'd be able to see which team wants the game and which team deserves it and which team is going to earn it in overtime. Instead, what you had last night was the referees allowing the teams to both go for the ball. Both guys got hands on the ball. And in the scramble, the Knicks took it. The Knicks did a good pass inside in the chaos. And that's the type of play that happens all the time. That type of play happens all the time. Granted, the Pistons should have had better ball security. The Knicks also should have not thrown the ball away. But to think that that is a clear foul call on DiVincenzo, that is just completely untrue. And then you have Monty Williams, and this is the worst part of it all. Monty Williams complaining about the refereeing when his team that he's been the coach of all season long has the worst record in the NBA. You win 14% of your games. Look at the standings, Monty. You're 8-49. You've lost 6 in a row. You set the record for most consecutive losses in a season. And you have the gall in a game where you had multiple opportunities to rebound the basketball and put the game away. And you failed on consecutive free throw misses to secure the rebound. And you're going to get upset about a 50-50 ball, saying that your lowly Pistons should have got the benefit of the whistle? What planet are you living on? You're the head coach of a team. You get paid $60 million on the season in a robbery of a contract for exactly what you're giving this team and what you're giving this Detroit City, and you have the gall to get up there in the press conference and blame the referees? You have a fourth quarter where your team can't rebound the basketball on the foul line. Have you ever thought to teach them that? You have a play in the fourth quarter where the Knicks score a basket and the entire team is walking off the floor. The Pistons are walking towards the bench for a timeout. And Monty Williams says, hey, I'm not calling timeout. The whole team thinks you're calling timeout. The whole team is insisting it's time for a timeout. Monty says, no, I'm not calling timeout, in a bewildering, bizarre couple of seconds over there where the team doesn't know what's up and what's down. And you're going to complain about the refereeing? That man's days in Detroit are numbered. His days are numbered. Because if you have the worst record in the NBA and you're going to scapegoat and say that the referees are the problem, wake up. Wake up. and realize it's your job to instill a culture. It's your job to teach them how to box out. It's your job for the players to know when there's a timeout. It's your job for the players to know what play they're running. It's your job to teach ball security. And it's your job to shut your mouth until you can teach this team what's up and what's down. Until you can teach this team what basketball looks like in a season where you're setting the record for most consecutive losses. Just keep quiet. Keep quiet and do your job. And stop complaining about other people's jobs. Do yours first. Elsewhere in the NBA, there were some points from the previous night that I wanted to get back to and highlight again. I was listening to another show, and it occurred to me that they were describing the Mavericks' offense as wanting to run the floor a lot. That's what the Mavericks are trying to do a great deal. And this person who I was watching was saying the Mavericks should run the floor, but they should be selectively running the floor. They don't need to run the floor on every single possession, right? They can choose when is it smart to run and when is it smart to play half court. Sometimes when you have the advantage or the mismatch, you want to run the ball, but sometimes if you don't have that, it's okay to take Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and run good plays in the half court, where you can still be one of the best half court teams in the league. And it occurred to me that the way he's describing the way the Nuggets, the way the Mavericks, I just gave it away, the way the Mavericks should be running their offense by selectively running and then sometimes accepting to play in the half court, that is exactly how the Denver Nuggets operate. They know when to run in transition. They know when Jokic gets the ball and he sees a man going deep and he has the opportunity to pass it to him and they have the advantage and he quarterbacks it down the court. Or if they see an advantage and they run in transition or they get a steal and they go in transition, they take the opportunity to do that. But a lot of the time they slow it down and they go into half-court mode with Jokic and Murray, and they're very hard to stop like that as well. But they don't force when they try to run, and they don't force when they try to play in the half-court. They're very much within themselves in the way that they run their offense, and they take advantage of both opportunities, the full court and the half-court. The Nuggets are already there, and the Mavericks are the team that's trying to get there. They have similar players at the helm in terms of passing and their ability to get full court assists. Doncic can do a lot of the passing that Jokic can do. And in terms of quarterbacking the offense, Doncic, although he's a very different player than Jokic in terms of size and position, he can do a lot of the playmaking that Jokic can do, especially when they choose to run the full court. And Doncic can also make the elective decision of when to take it to a half-court game. So that is just something that occurred to me when I was listening to someone talk about the Dallas Mavericks offense and how it can actually be similar to the Nuggets offense, with the Nuggets having it a bit more down pat right now in Dallas, with a couple of these trade deadline moves, still trying to figure out the best way to use their offense. Another point about Dallas is that Dallas fans are upset with the way Tim Hardaway Jr. has played lately. He was on fire earlier, especially in games where Doncic wasn't playing and where Kyrie wasn't playing. But now with all those guys playing consistently and these new pieces coming in, Hardaway has gone into a bit of a cold stretch. Now, it would be great if Hardaway was scoring like that all year long, but with everybody being back and everybody being healthy and all the new additions and him losing touches, it makes sense that he's not playing as well, considering he's a scorer and he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much. But what's much more important than Hardaway playing hero ball is that they're playing the right way, is that they're playing the right brand of basketball. Because when Hardaway plays hero ball, it's great when it works, and it's great when you're missing players, and Hardaway can be an equalizer and get you back into ball games and help you win games that you shouldn't have won or that you didn't expect to win. That's fantastic. But that type of play, the hero ball Hardaway, is not the way that you're going to win an NBA championship. So when it comes playoff time, you're going to have to shift away from that anyway. So you need to take the risk that Hardaway is not going to be as hot and get him to buy into playing basketball the right way, because that's more of the chance of you guys actually winning an NBA championship, is by playing the right brand of basketball and playing with passing and playing with Hardaway getting less touches. Also, if you really were listening to all the narratives around the league, it felt like once the Nuggets beat the Warriors, suddenly they woke everyone up. The Denver Nuggets woke everyone up, and now it's become a narrative of, hey, the Nuggets cruised through a lot of this regular season, but after they beat the Warriors, they just became the scariest team in the West, where they probably were already the scariest. But I think now everybody's really woken up to it, and it's become very apparent. Because when you look at those top 4 teams, you have the Timberwolves and the Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Clippers. The Timberwolves and Thunder are completely unproven in the playoffs, and both of them struggle in close fourth quarter games. So you have those two super young squads and teams that haven't totally figured it out on a playoff stage. And then you have the Clippers, who had an amazing 30 to 35 game run after they got Harden in there, and they're playing like a championship team during that stretch, but now they've cooled down a little bit. And you have those 3 guys. You have Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden, where 2 of the 3 stars are extremely injury prone, right? That being Kawhi and Paul George. And then you have the third player, James Harden, who is notorious for not playing great in the playoffs and for coming up short in the playoffs. So you have those 3 guys who are notorious for both injuries and not doing well in the playoffs. And frankly, Paul George is probably famous for both of those, being injury prone and also not playing well in the playoffs. As everybody knows, he gave himself the playoff P moniker and then proceeded to absolutely come up short in every single way after he gave himself that nickname. So really just a joke of sarcastic branding there, what turned out to be sarcastic with the playoff P nickname. But you have those 3 teams at the top, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the young teams, and then the third one being the Los Angeles Clippers, the injury-prone and the team that has a lot of question marks on their back. And suddenly it just becomes super apparent as the Nuggets beat the Warriors, who were really hot at the moment. They had won like 8 out of their last 10 games. And then the Nuggets go and they handle them. And you think, wait a second. Suddenly it's very clear and apparent that Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, and this Denver Nuggets team is the clear favorite. And it's really setting the stage up for an eventual Denver Nuggets versus Boston Celtics final, where Boston is ahead by like 7.5 games over any other team in the league. And the margin might even be wider than that. I mean, in the Eastern Conference. And the margin, honestly, might be even wider than that. The Celtics are the best team by far in the East. And the Nuggets, while their record may be similar to a couple of other teams at the top, they're the clear favorite based on some of the recent play and also based on them having the experience in the playoffs and them being a team that's been together longer versus the Thunder, the Timberwolves, and the Clippers. So it really felt like the stage has just been set in the last couple of nights for the eventual Boston versus Denver finals. Looking forward to what we have on the docket tonight. Actually, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through some of the, before we get to tonight's basketball, let's go through some of the Twitter polls that we've put up over the last bit. We put up one Twitter poll, which was about the eventual standings and the seeding in the NBA. And then we also put up one about the Knicks and Jalen Brunson. So we asked the audience, we said, if the Knicks win the NBA championship, where would Jalen Brunson rank against the best players from previous championship teams over the last 30 years? So the question is, if the Knicks would somehow manage to win the NBA Finals this year, where would you rank Jalen Brunson versus other best players from championship teams, like Shaq and Kobe and LeBron and so on? So the options were that he could be at the bottom. Would he be better than Chauncey Billups was on the Detroit Pistons team where they won the finals and he's considered the worst of all the best players to win a championship in terms of the best player on a championship team? Would he be better than Dirk Nowitzki? Would he be considered better than Dirk, right? Dirk won his championship. Or would he be considered up there in the top echelon with LeBron and those type of people? So we got, of course, there was a fringe saying that he would be equal with LeBron. Of course, that is probably untrue, but the majority of the people, the majority of our fans tuning in said that he would be considered better than Billups, but not quite as good as Dirk Nowitzki, with a smaller portion saying that he would be better than Dirk. We had 43% of the vote coming in that he would be considered better than Chauncey Billups if he was able to win a finals on this Knicks team, and we have 28% saying that he would be considered by the end of his career better than Dirk Nowitzki. So that's what the fans had to say. I think that I agree with most of the fans. Jalen Brunson would probably go down in history as better than Chauncey Billups, not quite as good as Dirk Nowitzki. We also had another poll where this has to do with the seeding, and it's very, very split. The question was, assuming that the Pelicans end up as a play-in team, which other Western Conference team would be joining them in the play-in? Would it be the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings, or the Dallas Mavericks, right? All three of those teams hovering around the same positioning as the Pelicans, and we had 37.5% of the voters coming in saying that the Sacramento Kings would end up being the other play-in team, and 33% said the Phoenix Suns, 30% on the Dallas Mavericks. So a very, very split group, and there was a lot of votes coming in on this one. So we had a decent sample size, but it seems like the fans are leaning more towards the Kings being in the play-in, and this was even before last night's Kings loss. And then there are fans who still say that it's pretty split. It's about a third, with slightly more leaning towards the Kings, but there are still about 30% saying the Phoenix Suns will be in the play-in, and about 30% saying the Mavericks will be in the play-in, and then about 37.5% saying the Kings would be in the play-in. So the fans are certainly split there, and for good reason. We also had another poll where if the Knicks faced the Pacers in round one of the playoffs, who would be the best player in the series? In a Knicks-Pacers playoff series, would it be Jalen Brunson or B, Tyrese Halliburton? And we are exactly split straight down the middle, 50% coming in on Brunson and 50% coming in on Halliburton. So that would be a great matchup with the Knicks going against the Pacers. Yes, the Pacers lost last night, but in a 7-game playoff series, would Brunson outplay Halliburton, or would Halliburton play out Brunson? Very split down the middle. We had one more poll with who has the worst career if he never played alongside LeBron James. Would it be A, Anthony Davis, or B, Kyrie Irving? And all of the voters so far have come in on the Kyrie Irving, that Kyrie Irving, if he hadn't played with LeBron, and Anthony Davis also hadn't played with LeBron, that Kyrie would have the worst career overall. So very interesting to see what the fans, you guys are a great part of the show. The audience is everything. So great to see that you guys are participating in the polls, and it's great to get the feel for what our audience believes is going to happen down the stretch. They believe that the Sacramento Kings are going to end up being in the play-in with the New Orleans Pelicans, and some of these other opinions that the fans have is great to see. So now we direct our focus to what is coming up on the docket tonight. It's a massive, massive night of NBA action. You have the Brooklyn Nets going to Orlando to face the Magic, and the Magic should be able to handle the Brooklyn Nets, who have absolutely nothing to play for the rest of the season. Then you have the Dallas Mavericks coming off of a loss. Their 7-game win streak was snapped. They're going to try to go to Cavaliers, and frankly, they're getting the Cavaliers at a very good time. The Cavaliers are not playing their best basketball right now, so look for the Mavericks to upset Cleveland in Cleveland tonight. You have the Warriors going against the Wizards for as much of a gimme as you can get in the NBA. The Warriors will handle business tonight and beat the Washington Wizards in Washington. You have the Jazz going against the Hawks in a game that really doesn't matter because the Hawks are firmly in the 10 seed. Nobody's going to catch them. They're going to remain in the 10 seed. And the Jazz have really nothing to play for on their end, so it doesn't matter who wins. The Jazz versus the Hawks makes absolutely no difference. Both teams' trajectories are already set. The Pelicans are going to go face off against the New York Knicks. Pelicans not playing their best basketball right now. The Knicks also not playing their best basketball, and they are still missing OG, and they are still missing Mitchell Robinson. So the Knicks certainly missing some key players for their team. But I expect the Knicks, after getting the victory last night, to get another victory tonight against the Pelicans. The Knicks just are a more consistent team, and the Pelicans were the benefactors of a very kind schedule in the games leading up to this. But once the schedule heated up a little bit, the Pelicans started losing once again. So I look for the Knicks to win tonight at MSG. Then you have the 76ers going to face the Celtics in Boston. Boston will handle business like they always do on their home court. You have the Spurs going to face the Timberwolves. Timberwolves should wipe the floor with the Spurs tonight on their home court. You have the Hornets playing their best basketball of the season. They're going to Milwaukee. And Milwaukee can be very hot and cold because their offense is predicated on deep threes from Lillard and deep threes from Lopez, which I do not like. So watch out because the Hornets are playing very well right now. The problem for the Hornets is that they're not scoring the basketball very well in the last two ball games, right? They won one, they lost one, they lost a game to Golden State, which snapped their 4-game win streak, and then they rebounded and won their last one against one of the worst teams in the NBA. But the Hornets are going to have to score a little bit better. They're going to have to score more than 90 or 100 points to beat the Bucks tonight. If they can do that, they might get the win. I look for a very close competitive matchup with the Hornets against the Bucks tonight. Then we have the Pistons coming off of last night's loss. They're going to face the Bulls in a game which does not matter. Chicago against Detroit, nobody cares. The Rockets have nothing to play for the rest of the way. They are going to face off against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are one of the most consistent teams in the entire league. In Oklahoma City, the Thunder will defend their home court and beat the Rockets. And then the Heat, winners of how many in a row? The Heat have won 4 games in a row, and that trend should continue tonight against the worst team in the Western Conference, well, second worst team in the Western Conference, the Portland Trailblazers. The Heat should handle business. The Blazers have lost 8 games in a row. Look for that to continue tonight against the Miami Heat. That pretty much does it for us here on NBAV. Follow us on social at NBAV and NBA Avenue. Email the show with your questions and comments at nbavenue@yahoo.com. We're your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.